Hello and welcome to Every Day is Draft Day, episode 1. We finally did it. We rebranded the podcast. We're here, and it's a little bit of a nod to one of my favorite rewatchable movies of all time, Draft Day. I always wanted to be Sonny Weaver Jr. and yell at someone to give me David goddamn Putney. So I'm happy that I can bring a podcast to life in that name, and also something that's fantasy relevant. Today I am joined by my buddy at Champions Round, Dan Turner. Dan, how you doing today? Thanks for being a part of the podcast.
Absolutely. I'm doing great, man. I mean, if you want to yell at me to get Putney, I'll just go run out and get him right now and bring him on the show. I don't mind.
Absolutely. So it is August 26th. We have a lot to announce at Champions Round before we jump into this fantasy football podcast. I know everybody's excited about drafting. Everybody's doing all their home leagues right now, which is awesome. We're going to help you, hopefully, if you're drafting at the end of this week or next week. But we have some business to take care of first. So the first thing on the docket for us is we have this new podcast, and we have a second new podcast called Gambling with Gold. That'll be short form, 10-minute nuggets. We actually have the first 4 episodes that are up now. That's with Dan Titus from the Action Network. So go take a look at those. They were awesome to do. We did AFC previews. So that should be great. And we also have this podcast. So we will be doing this once a week, twice a week. So please check in and listen to us here. The second part here is that we have cash contests on the Champions Round app that are ready for download right now. You can enter for free or you can do paid contests. I will be in a lot of those paid contests myself. So come and join me. Come try to win some money. Try to beat the champ over here and have a good time. And then the last update that I have for everybody is if you follow Champions Round on Twitter and then you download the app, you become eligible for a Christian McCaffrey signed jersey. Now, we'll be doing these throughout the course of the season. There'll be certain stuff that you have to follow or do or answer a question on our social media to be eligible to win one of these signed jerseys. But we have about 250 of them. So we're going to be giving them away all over the place, whether it's our captain challenge that you win or boost ball or 7 stakes or something on social. A lot of ways to win over at Champions Round. So be sure to lock in. So with all that said, let's get to the podcast. Dan, you have an article coming out that is later this week, bold predictions. So yes. I figured what a better time than to talk about some of our bold predictions than right now. So let me hear what your number one is. I want to get this one out of the way.
All right. So number one bold prediction, we had some big news recently with Travis Etienne, being out for the year. So my number one bold prediction in that same vein is that James Robinson does not finish as a running back 1. Does not.
Wow. Okay. Spicy.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is
Carlos Hyde. I think that
okay.
And Laviska Shenault. I think that Robinson was good last year because he had a ton of volume. He wasn't the most efficient running back. So I think if you take away some of that volume, if Urban Meyer likes to run those sweeps and stuff with Laviska, and if Carlos Hyde takes any of the work, Carlos Hyde is still a decent running back. I just don't think that that Robinson's going to be finish as high as people think he is. I think people are overdoing the Etienne injury. I think Robinson's obviously the lead back now, but I still think that there's enough there that he doesn't finish as in the top 12 running back.
All right, so I don't hate that. Top 12 is hard to do. I thought the Etienne injury helped Shenault actually the most. I think that he's going to take a lot more from the slide. He's going to get more involved in the running game. I think it's a big boost to his value. As I do, I think it was probably a little bit boost to Marvin Jones. Not as much DJ Shark, but I think the 2 of those wide receivers are really going to see a boost from Etienne not playing in the slot and being all over the place. Also, just the fact that Lawrence was definitely going to target Etienne all over the place. That's his guy. So I think it helps there. Robinson's role probably doesn't change all that much. He probably gets a 10% boost in volume on the ground. I don't think that his usage in the passing game is really going to be that much more, maybe another 5% on top if I was redoing my projections. Carlos Hyde, I agree with you. Nice little boost there. Something that I would take late in drafts, although I'm sure he's now going to be overdrafted due to this news. So if you were lucky enough to get him earlier, great. at this point, and maybe not. We'll see. We'll kind of see where his ADP ends up. I'd be interested to see if they bring in a third back at some point and what that player's value would be. I was actually kind of surprised that they didn't go out and get Javian Hawkins, who was the guy who Atlanta cut, who ended up in Tennessee. He would have been a nice little third piece for them. But, I'd be interested to see who the third back is going to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's still, with cuts coming up next week, there probably going to be a running back that they add just to, try to hopefully, replace some of what they're losing with ETN going down.
Yeah, but it'll probably be like Beanie Wells or something that Urban used to play with, something like that.
Right.
All right, so I'll go over to my first bold prediction. We're each going to do 5 of them. Mine is that TJ Hawkinson, someone who I've hyped on all offseason. I can't get enough of him, and I have him finishing at tight end 2, just behind Travis Kelce and just ahead of Darren Waller this year. And I could see it as him finishing as tight end 1. I think it would require some injuries from one of the two of those guys. But I think the volume is going to be very comparable to what Waller had last year, which was 96 receptions. I think that another part of this, let's do a 1A here. I think TJ Hawkinson has 100 receptions this season.
Okay.
So there you go. That's my spiciest take of the day.
There is a lot of love for Hawkinson on everywhere, but the only thing I agree that he's going to get a massive target share because he's obviously the most talented pass catcher they have left. I just worry that he, like, the receivers there. I mean, they have like Tyrell Williams and then probably like St. Brown are probably going to be their top 2. They just don't scare anybody. So I mean, if you can double Hawkinson every play, I mean, is he good enough to be able to beat that on a consistent basis week to week? And that's the only thing that gives me pause in putting him that high. I think he's uber talented, and I think he's obviously the number 1 catcher there. But it worries me that and his quarterback isn't good. I mean, let's all be honest here. Jared Goff is not that good of a quarterback. So it concerns me with how good of how good his targets are going to be, and 2, if he can handle the attention that defenses are going to place on him.
Okay, so I have a couple of counterpoints. Those are very fair arguments. One is Jared Goff, even though he stinks, has proven that he can support fantasy football players before. He's done it with wide receivers. Mm-hmm. He gives the ball to the other team a lot, and he misses a lot of open throws, but he's still going to throw it enough and is good enough that he's going to be okay. He'll be okay. The second point here is that I think that a lot of Hawkins' stuff is just going to happen in garbage time. Their defense is so bad. They're going to be behind. No one's doubling if they're down 20 in the fourth quarter. And he's just going to do the old Austin Eckler thing. He's just going to gobble up points in the fourth quarter. It doesn't matter when the catches come. They all count exactly the same. So I think that, and this is kind of one of the reasons that I'm high on DeAndre Swift also, is I just think that the garbage points in Detroit is just like so underrated possible this year. And I also think that at tight end, you saw it with Waller last year. Like, you can try to double guys inside. It doesn't really work like that. Like, you can bracket coverage wide receivers on the outside. It's a lot easier to do. When you're lined up on the line or just off the line, it's just much harder. The middle gets clogged and you open up lanes on the outside. And it's not like these guys are like, the worst players in the league. Jared Goff is not the worst quarterback in the league. Tyrell Williams, when healthy, is not the worst wide receiver in the league. So if you give them opportunities on the outside and double on the inside, they're going to take advantage at some point. I just don't foresee that happening, and I would rather bank on Hawkinson making stuff happen over the middle of the field.
I mean, I know, like, you have a good point. Like, Tyrell Williams isn't like the worst receiver, but like, this will be probably like the first time he's going to be the number 1 guy. I mean, He's great as a number 3 when he has, like, Keenan Allen, to take deep, but how is the whole offense going to work with these guys in these new roles? St. Brown is talented, but how is he going to hold up to, NFL defenses in his first year? So that's the only thing, like, from a talent standpoint, no question, Hawkinson has that potential. It's just like logistically, I just don't think that Detroit is going to be good enough to put him that high. That's all.
Fair enough. All right, let's move over to your second bold prediction of the day.
All right, so we'll keep it with the tight end, since we'll go that route with with the news that Denver, has appointed Teddy Bridgewater as the starting QB, I think that Noah Fant is going to be a top 5 tight end this year. I think that Teddy doesn't have the best gunslinging arm. He's really that guy that's going to target the middle of the field, and then Jerry Jeudy is going to be that's wheels up for Jerry Jeudy as well, and Cortland Sutton is there. I just think that Fant is going to be probably the biggest beneficiary for that quarterback change from Drew Lock, and he's going to get the targets needed, and he's athletic enough in order to get once you get past like the first 4 or 5 tight ends anyway, it's a crapshoot. But I think that he's going to be consistent enough this year to get into that upper echelon of top 5 production.
I hope so. I have Fant in a couple places. I would love to see that happen. I'm a little skeptical about some of the stuff with Denver and Teddy Bridgewater. Actually, on our gambling show yesterday, I went on a giant rant about how stupid it was to start Teddy Bridgewater over Drew Lock. If you want to hear that rant, you can go over there. It's definitely spicy. I just thought it was a poor decision on the behalf of the Broncos, but we'll leave that on that podcast. I am high on Jeudy and I'm high on Fant. I think that definitely having Bridgewater there makes their floor a lot safer. I think it limits the upside a hair. But I think that they both should do well this year. I wouldn't be surprised to see Fant as a top 5 guy, especially if his red zone targets are converted into touchdowns. I'll stick with the tight ends just because we're here. I'll jump a little bit ahead. I have Gerald Everett finishing as the top 7 tight end this season. And there's a little bit of steam behind him. He's definitely going up draft boards right now. Look, he comes over with Shane Waldron, who's the new OC for Seattle. He comes from the Rams. He knows that system really well. There were reports at the beginning of training camp that he knew the offense better than Russell Wilson did. That's always great. Seattle needs a third pass catcher behind Lockett and Metcalf. I don't think that player is Dwayne Eskridge, not this season, even though he's like 32-year-old rookie or whatever his age is. I think he's like actually 24, 25, but still.
He's up there.
Yeah, and Everett was a relatively productive player for the Rams. Like when he got a chance just to be the guy, he can make plays down the field. He's very athletic. Like his athletic profile is outstanding. And I think that this is the year that he really has a breakout. And, Seattle hasn't had a really great one. I guess Jimmy Graham had a couple good seasons there, but not like elite seasons. I think it's time. I think Everett's going to be a top 7 guy with a chance to be maybe a top 5 guy. And if you're going to punt on tight end in fantasy drafts, Everett is a guy that I would love to target towards the end of a draft.
I have to agree with you there. I mean, there's a couple of leagues where he's still on waivers, not even picked up yet. He's definitely, with Lockett and with Metcalf there, he's not going to see any doubles anytime ever. He definitely has the talent, like we saw with the Rams to be that guy. And the problem with Seattle tight ends is they've been rotating once a year for the past 5 years. No guy's ever been, the guy for a while. But with Everett being the guy there, I think that I agree. He definitely has that upside to be in that top echelon of guys. So in this case, I agree with your tight end take.
Nice. All right, let's move on to your number 3.
All right, I gotta get off tight ends for a second. I gotta go to receivers.
Okay.
I think that Brandon Ayuk does not finish as a wide receiver 2. I think he goes lower than that. I think that
is a spicy one.
It is
very spicy.
It is. I know everyone seems to love Ayuk and goes physically, like the talent and everything, but excuse me, there are 2 main points I think that take away from that. One is he had a lot of production last year, but most of the offense was hurt. Depot wasn't there. Kittle was gone for a while, so he's not going to get as many opportunities, I don't think, as we expect him to. And 2, everyone it pretty much assumed that Trey Lance is going to start at some point this year, but everyone seems to forget that one, he's a running guy, so that's going to be taking some pass opportunities away, and he's going to be a rookie. And historically, rookie quarterbacks don't do well for pass catchers. So I just think that with all those factors combined, I just don't see him having as good of a year as people expect him to have. I think that there are plenty of other guys that are going to have better years that leapfrog into that wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 territory where they're going to knock him down a couple of places.
Yeah, I definitely think that given where Ayuk is going right now in drafts, I think that he's probably overpriced, and he's not overpriced because of talent. It's it's at least for me completely situational. I don't know what the Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance thing's going to do, and if Lance ends up playing the most games or more games than Garoppolo, I feel like there's a big chance that Ayuk just can't live up to it just volume based. Like it's a rookie quarterback, which isn't good for fantasy wide receivers. He's a running quarterback. No, listen, he's a mobile quarterback. He's not a running quarterback. Mobile quarterback. That's also not great for receivers. So yeah, I'm a little down on Ayuk too. I actually have to make a decision about him in a keeper league right now, and I'm a little torn on what to do with him. It's a good pick. It's an 11th round keeper, but I don't really trust that I really want him on my team this season.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. For 11th round, you probably, that's good. But where he's being drafted now in some leagues, and like in my home league, he got drafted way, I think, a little higher than I would like him. I think that there's other players around where he's going that have a more defined role not that Trey Lance is a bad quarterback, with like a better quarterback situation for this year for me to take him where he's going.
Okay, here's a question because I think they're going at about the same range. Who would you rather have, Chase Claypool or Brandon Ayuk?
Oh, Claypool.
Yeah.
Okay. 10 times. 100%. Yeah. It's not. Yeah. Claypool, he has the chance to be the receiver one in Pittsburgh, and Ben is old. He's probably not the Ben that we're used to, but I'd rather Claypool over Ayuk easily.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I'll stick with wide receiver too. I'm just going to keep matching wherever you go on this. Right. Anyone who's listened to any of the podcasts this year know that there's two guys that I'm on higher than pretty much anyone else, and that's TJ Hawkinson is one, and CeeDee Lamb is the other. I have CeeDee Lamb absolutely as a top 5 wide receiver this year with a chance to finish at number 1, but the bold prediction is that he's top 5 wide receiver. The real upside, the 3B here is number 1 overall. I'm a little hesitant for that to happen just because there's the Cooper situation there. If Amari wasn't in the picture, I would totally just make this play. I think it's going to be him or Calvin Ridley. I think those are the two guys if Cooper wasn't there. So, yeah, I'll go with CeeDee Lamb.
All right. So, yeah, talent-wise, there's no question that he has the potential. But so let me ask you this. Does the fact that Dak can't seem to get rid of that throwing soldier strain injury worry you at all at any point?
I mean, obviously, if you're not concerned about Dak's arm a little bit, I think that you're naive. And certainly their backup situations is a little bit worse this year than with Andy Dalton. Like CeeDee Lamb performed great with Andy Dalton. So I wouldn't be too worried about that. I think the benefit to him versus Gallup or Cooper is that he's going to play in the slot a lot more than the other two, and his average depth of target is not quite what the other twos are. So I would actually say maybe in some way this helps him because Dak's not going to want to target the outside as much, and he'll target the middle of the field, which is where Lamb produces the best. I don't necessarily know that that's true, but I could make the reasonable case that it's going to benefit him more than if he had a normal throwing motion right now.
Right. All right. I mean, that's fair. Like, obviously, CeeDee is definitely on talent alone, a top 5 guy. So
yeah, absolutely.
I just worry about, it seems that Dallas isn't telling us the whole thing about Dak's shoulder as much as they could, and the fact that it's persisted as long as it has leads me to believe that it's maybe a little worse than what they're telling us. But if Dak's healthy, then obviously wheels up on CeeDee there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move over to your number 4.
All right, sticking with receivers, we're going to go with Nelson Aguilar. I think that he is in line for a pretty big year. I have him as a top 28 wide receiver this year. I think that he takes that number 1 role in New England. I think that the fact that they may be going with Mac Jones actually helps him a little bit because I think that Mac Jones structurally doesn't have obviously the rushing potential that Cam Newton has, so that's more opportunities to throw. I think that with the tight ends they signed with Jonnu and Hunter Henry being there, I think that's going to be the focus of the offense. But I think that Nelson is definitely talented enough. Talent was never his issue. It was his consistency even back in Philly. I think he takes that number 1 job from Jacoby Myers, and he's in line for not a huge year, but a better year than people are expecting.
I mean, Aguilar's a wide receiver 28 would be, fantastic for him and a great value right now. I think that, people It's like people forgot about what he did last year so quickly because he switched teams and he's like in this weird quarterback conundrum. But he was spectacular last season for the Raiders. Like he was genuinely awesome. And he obviously earned himself a nice little contract over there with the Patriots. I do agree that having Mac Jones there and him actually playing would be a huge benefit, not only to Aguilar, but to a lot of their pass catchers. Jonnu Smith probably gets up a little bit. Jacoby Myers definitely goes up a little bit. I think definitely can see those three benefiting from having Mac Jones at QB.
Absolutely. I agree there.
All right. I'll move over to my number 4, which is Javonte Williams will outscore Melvin Gordon by at least 75 fantasy points this season.
Oh wow. That is, I was going to say like Javonte over, but 75, that is okay.
75 points. I think that Melvin Gordon not only loses his job very quickly, but gets phased out of the Broncos organization. I do not think that he ends this season as a Denver Bronco. How about that for spice?
Jesus, he just not even loses his job, just gone. They're just completely gone from everything.
Gone. I think that Javonte takes over by week 4. They realize they don't have to pay Gordon. He's going to get mad that he's not being played. They've already paid him all of his money. Like this is the last year of his deal. I think he just gets cut and goes to a new team, and they ride with Javonte and Royce Freeman and whoever the third back that they bring in is.
All right. I mean, I don't expect them to, completely get rid of him like you do, but I think that Javonte definitely, wins that job sooner rather than later. I mean, the talent level is obvious, and you don't spend that high of a pick on a guy to not play him. So I think that he offers, 3 down back potential that Melvin probably doesn't as much anymore. Getting up there in running back age is obviously not old, but in running back years he is. But it'd be interesting to see. I mean, if they go that route, then Javonte, where he's going now, is going to be still he has running back 1 potential. If he takes the whole job and literally tosses Gordon out the door, then that'd be all. I mean, he'd be a great value for where he's being drafted now, and probably a league winner at that point.
All right, let's move over to your number 5.
All right, number 5. Switching gears now to quarterbacks, and I have to mention, watching him as closely as I have, I think that Jalen Hurts has top 5 potential. I know, I'm the Eagle fan and whatever, but everything from training camp, he had a rough start from training camp, but he's definitely improved. We haven't seen him in preseason. They kept him out of all the preseason games, but everything from the joint practices with the Jets and the Patriots, he seems to be coming along. The fact that they haven't gotten rid of Zach Ertz and he's still on the team, that's a plus for him. The emergence of Quez Watkins as a legitimate, starting receiver is also a plus. And then the fact that, this right now the starting seems to be Rager, Watkins, and Smith, and that's fast. I mean, he has a bunch of fast receivers. He has the legs. He has the tight ends with Goddard and Ertz. He has a great, a good to great offensive line. I mean, everything is there for him to have a spectacular year. And everyone wants to throw around the 52% completion percentage last year, but I think that the offense that Sirianni's building for him, he's going to definitely improve that by at least 10 points. He's going to be at least, mid 60s. So that's my second half of my prediction, at least mid 60s completion percentage. He's going to, with his Konami potential, he's going to be there at the top 5.
Yeah, as long as Hurts is completing, let's just say 60% of his passes.
Yeah.
And is not turning the ball over. If he plays 17 games this season, he completes the ball at 60% and he limits the turnovers. This is definitely at least a top 7 guy, top 8 guy at worst, just based on floor, his rushing floor alone. So top 5, I could definitely see there's some big hitters that he's going to have to take out in order to get in the top 5. So he could have a great season and still not be able to take over Kyler or Dak or Josh Allen or Lamar or Mahomes.
I think he does better than Lamar. I think he does better than Lamar.
Oh, okay, that's a good one. So he's going to end up with more fantasy points than Lamar. You would get a nice little plus bet in Vegas if you wanted to put that one in. I'll try to find it for you.
I would. But I think he does. I think you have the Mahomes and Allen and Kyler and Dak, and then probably him is probably where I'd go this year if I would go to the top 5.
I am very interested to see what Nick Sirianni has in store and what this offense is going to look like, because I have no idea. The only thing that I can base Sirianni off of is the Colts, and there's like no correlation to what the Eagles are going to run in their sort of personnel from what the Colts were running last season. Mm-hmm. So it'll be very interesting. I guess the only correlation is that both teams have really good offensive lines. I don't know. I really don't know what that means though, like in terms of the schemes that they're going to run. So it'll be interesting week 1 to see what the Eagles do. I actually already have a bet on the Eagles week 1 plus 3.5 at Atlanta. I really, really like that bet. So we'll see. I might be a little higher on the Eagles early on in the season than I had earlier anticipated that I was going to be.
Well, plus they have the running backs. They have Gainwell and Sanders, who are two like decent to good pass catchers there. So, it's one of two things are going to happen in Atlanta. Either we're going to win close or they're going to blow us out by 30 points. So that's the only two things that can happen.
And I'll tell you one thing: Atlanta isn't blowing anyone out by 30 points with that defense.
Yeah,
they got more holes than Swiss cheese. I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, so that's a good defense for Jalen to get in there.
Ease into the season. Yeah,
exactly.
All right, last bold prediction, and then we'll move on to a couple quick sleepers before we talk auction strategies. This one is probably the spiciest one and definitely the least likely to happen. I think the chances of this happening are about 2%, but I'll swing my my bat. I'll take my shots. Tony Pollard outscores Ezekiel Elliott this season.
I love it. I love it. Let's hear it.
That is the final bold prediction this year. This is definitely injury related, but I think that the wheels are going to fall off for Zeke this season at some point. I think an injury is happening. Having this many carries, including what he had at Ohio State, and to do it for this long is just, and in this version of the NFL, is simply unsustainable. You saw it come off a little bit last year. I know he lost the weight. I don't think that him losing the weight is necessarily the best thing. It may be a better short-term play, but for a 17-game season now, I think it's a really, really big issue. And I think that once Pollard gets the chance, he's going to show out. So I'll take Pollard over Zeke this season.
I mean, I'll take it one step further. I think even if Zeke's healthy, I think Pollard outplays him.
Wow.
Honestly.
Okay. But now you're taking it.
I mean, I know it's your prediction, but I mean, at the end of last year, I know Zeke didn't play as much. It was clear that Pollard was the better back towards the end of last year, and everyone gives these excuses to Zeke, like Dak wasn't there, but Dak wasn't there for Pollard either. Yeah, and he still outplayed him. So I mean, he had the same offensive line, the same receivers, and everything, and it was clear that Pollard was the better back last year. So I think that Zeke has a ton of carries. People don't realize the amount of carries and targets and everything, just the volume that he's had over the past couple of years, and that's going to crush every running back. It crushed LT. It crushed everybody. And Zeke's, I think the clip's coming for Zeke, and I think Pollard's going to take advantage of it.
I think Zeke has like 250 more carries than Derrick Henry over the same amount of time.
Yeah,
so
it's
like
astronomical. People don't understand the amount of work that Zeke has over everyone else. It's just crazy.
Yeah, so definitely, if we've faded Zeke a lot, and there is a point at which you should take him in drafts, but don't be surprised if this is a really, really bad Zeke season.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to some sleepers. We're going to give you 3 really quick ones because everybody's looking for them right now. I went really, really deep. This is more like dynasty deep rather than redraft deep.
All right.
But I'll let you kick it off with your 3.
My 3? All right. So my 3 are Darnell Mooney. I think that Justin Fields is going to be quarterback in there sooner rather than later. I think that Robinson's obviously going to take all the coverage, and Mooney's talented enough to, in that wide receiver 2 role, to definitely carve out a decent fantasy role for your team. Philip Lindsay, I think that everyone knows that Houston is a big dumpster fire, but I just don't trust anyone else that they have. I think they have David Johnson and Mark Ingram, who are both, ancient and fallen off the cliff pretty much now. And I think Lindsay is definitely good enough to take that backfield, and where he's going in drafts, he could provide some awesome value for you there. And then you mentioned him earlier, actually, Marvin Jones. I think that Marvin Jones has definitely been the best receiver coming out of Jags camp from all the reports that we've seen. I think DJ Shark has fallen a bit on the wayside here, and Laviska is more in that multi-role with the running and everything. But I think as far as pure receiving goes, I think Marvin Jones is going to lead the Jags this year, and Trevor's definitely good enough to get him the ball. They have a good report that they're building over there, so I'm excited to see what he does this year.
I think my favorite one of those three is Philip Lindsay because people are still not talking about him. There's a good chance that come like September 9th that David Johnson's not even on the team.
Yeah.
And we know about Ingram at this point. Like he's toast. He won the Heisman Trophy in like what 2010 or something like that. He's a running back. It's ridiculous. Like, okay, we got to move on from Ingram being a relevant fantasy piece at this point. And Lindsay, all he's done is be really productive on a play-by-play basis. The fact that like someone hasn't realized to really go after him, like I think it was a steal for the Texans. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him finish as like a top 20 running back this season at all.
Yeah.
All right, my three sleepers. I went, like I said, like really deep. Like you should never take any of these guys in a standard like 16 pick league. No chance. Please don't do it. But if you're in a deep dynasty league, I'm in a couple of them. These are guys, put them on your taxi squad, forget about it, but they might actually end up having some value this season. All right, I'll start. Number one, Demetric Felton, who's a running back wide receiver for the Cleveland Browns.
All my dynasty leagues.
Yeah, he was one of my favorite guys coming out of UCLA, coming into the draft this year. I thought he was more of a third-round pick. He got picked, I believe, in the 6th round by Cleveland. Kind of does it all. Looks like they're going to use him more as a wide receiver than a running back, especially given the fact that they have two of the best running backs in the league. I don't think that they really need a third one right now, although if one of them goes down, who knows. Felton kind of reminds me as like a Reggie Bush type of player, where you line him up as slot receiver and it is actually better than he would have been as a running back. I firmly believe that for Reggie Bush, the Saints should have done that a long time ago. And I think that Felton is a guy who could end up having, it depends on kind of how Jarvis and Odell are health-wise and the kind of the progression of Donovan Peoples-Jones. But I think that he's firmly the 4th wide receiver there right now. I think he's ahead of Anthony Schwartz, a couple of the other guys that they have on the roster. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him have, 30 or 40 receptions this season and be a big part of the offense. Baker Mayfield has talked him up a lot. He actually just had a full article written about him in The Athletic. So it's usually you don't find 6th round picks or getting written up a full article in The Athletic 2 weeks before the season starts. So that's kind of like a little writing on the wall, like, oh, maybe this guy's actually going to be like a little bit bigger piece than we think it is.
Pay attention to that. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that would be my first one, super deep sleeper. Second one is going to be the 3rd wide receiver on the Vikings, Amir Smith-Marset from Iowa, also a rookie here. And this is kind of because I think that the Vikings, they don't really have this 3rd receiver. They have obviously 2 elite ones in Jefferson and Thielen. Irv Smith is going to come on a little bit this season, but they don't have a 3rd guy. Smith is going to be on the field a lot more than people think they is. Kind of like how Russell Gage was a little bit last year. No one really knew who the heck he was, but he was always on the field. And if you throw the ball that much, and the Vikings throw the ball quite a bit, we'll see how good their defense is. If it's anywhere as bad as last season, they're going to throw a ball a lot. And just by the fact that he's going to be out there as a 3rd receiver, I think he could be pretty productive. And I actually like his athletic profile. Great on the deep ball, something that Kirk Cousins does pretty well. I think he's someone that could break out at some point this season. So don't be surprised if people are picking up on the waiver wire around week 8. And if Jefferson or Thielen were to go down, he automatically moves up into like the wide receiver 3 range. So definitely keep an eye out for him. The last one is the Saints' 3rd tight end, former Oregon player Juwan Johnson, who was a wide receiver, now a tight end. It looked like Nick Van Ette's going to be out for a while, and Adam Troutman was dealing with a foot injury, although he looks to be okay. I'm still really high on Troutman this season, especially with Jameis there, looking like he's going to be the starting quarterback. They're going to throw the ball a little bit more. But if Troutman goes down or isn't looking as good, and the fact that the Saints do not have a lot of weapons on the outside, it looks like Juwan Johnson is going to get a lot more play than people would think. And I think as a super long shot tight end, like if you're in like a 2 tight end league, this is definitely a guy that you should have on your roster at like the end of your drafts, or in Dynasty if you're in a two tight end league. He can work wonders. He's a really big guy. He has wide receiver skills, fast. I think that he would be someone that you may want to pay attention to, because I wouldn't be surprised in week 5 or 6 we look up and he's got 8-10 catches right. Like, who the heck is this guy?
Yeah, absolutely. He's one of those guys that if you wait on tight end, one of the dart throwers, might as well throw a dart at him. I mean, as it is, if Michael Thomas doesn't come back until later in the year, you have Callaway and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Maybe Troutman isn't healthy either. So I mean, no one cares about Traquan Smith. So if you're gonna, throw a dart at a guy, might as well throw a guy with, especially if Winston starts. He has in Tampa Bay, he regularly targeted the tight end. So why not?
I mean, Winston's going to throw the crap out of the ball. He doesn't know how to do anything different.
He doesn't.
What team it's going to, we have no idea, but he's going to chuck it out there. Absolutely, he's going to chuck it. So you could do worse than having these random Saints wide receivers and tight ends. I honestly, if you're in a really deep league, like take 3 of them and just see what hits. Someone has to catch the ball. So
got to be throwing to somebody that's on the Saints. Can't always throw it to the opposing team the entire time.
Only 30 times a season.
Yeah, on average.
All right, let's finish out the podcast with a little auction strategy. I'm kind of half-assed doing this because I have 3 auctions this week, and I'm trying to remind myself how to do them. We've been doing best ball and full redrafts the entire offseason. No one does auction practice in March or April. So trying to get back into the swing of that, and I know a lot of people out there have auction strategies. I actually find it to be the most fun, 2 hours of fantasy football drafting. It's super exciting, really engaging. But like I said, it only happens for about 3 or 4 weeks a year. So let's get into it. What is your number 1 tip for participating in an auction draft?
All right. So take your 5 guys you need to have on your team. Make sure you get 2 of them. No matter what the price, even if it's you're overpaying a little bit, there's always values later on. Everyone blows their budget. Just make sure you get 2 your guys no matter what.
So that means in my case, I'd be blowing my entire thing on TJ Hawkinson and CeeDee Lamb. All right.
Exactly.
So mine is kind of a similar approach. I'm firmly of the belief that you do the stars and scrubs approach. Spend all your money early on the guys that you really love. 2 out of 5 is a great way to think about it. I had actually never thought about it quite in that way, but it makes a lot of sense. You want to spend your money up top. Go get the stars. You got to have those guys on your team. You're not going to win without them. You can always go and get the sleepers later. Remember, everybody's going to spend their budget. So waste it at the top. Go get your guys. And then just wait and go spend $1 on all these sleepers that we've been talking about all off season. Listen to them on any podcast. There's a ton of guys out there. You're going to be right on some of them. I think that's definitely the best strategy in auction. Now, what do you have for your second piece of advice for the people out there?
So building off that, if you have a sleeper that you like and you bid on him and it goes outside your price range, don't chase them. Don't chase the guys that you like. If they go outside your budget, be disciplined. Don't spend $25 on Mike Davis or whatever just because you need a running back. Just save that money, spend it on another receiver, Robert Woods or somebody, and then just look later when there's going to be deals at the end of the draft. So don't panic. That's pretty much the case for all fantasy drafts, whether redraft or auction. Don't panic and blow the money on something you're going to regret later when you have a guy that you want there and you can't afford him and he's going cheap because you lost your money on a player you didn't really want but you thought you needed.
All right, my second piece of advice here is do not nominate players that you want in the first 8 rounds. Your first 8 nominations, just make other people waste their money. Always do players that are going to be really high-priced items. Get them out of the way. Get the players that you don't want. Make everybody else lose their cash. Then you can focus on the guys that you really want. And if you need to go to the bathroom, you nominate someone, you go to the bathroom, you don't have to worry about it anymore. Let them battle it out. So
Travis Kelce. Always nominate Travis Kelce first.
All right. Another one that I wanted to hit on quickly was, I'll do 2.
All right.
Don't leave money in your pocket ever. Spend everything that you have. Do not walk away from a draft with $198 spent and $2 left on the board.
You can't take it with you.
Yeah, exactly. Cannot take it with you. The other one, if your league allows it, don't pick a kicker or defense. Use all your money on real players. You can go pick up kicker or defense later. You never know when Travis Etienne is going to get injured or Troutman's going to hurt an ankle. There's still preseason games left to play. There's still, 15, 14 days until the season starts.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about kicker or defense. You can pick those up on September 10th.
for $1.
Yeah, for $1. It does not matter at all. Just do not waste your money on any of those guys.
Yeah, that's absolutely great advice. Don't waste your money on people you don't want.
All right, you got any other ones for the people out there?
Let me think. I don't think so. I think that we covered it pretty well. Don't leave money hanging. Don't waste money on people you don't want. Nominate people you don't want early, and don't overspend.
I will give one last piece of advice before we take the podcast offline for a little bit. We'll be back next week, which will be great. I'm excited to have episode 2 of the newly named podcast. It'll be awesome. My last piece of auction strategy advice would be know exactly how much everybody has to spend on their max budget. Mm-hmm. So if you get towards the middle of the draft or end of the draft and someone's bidding really high, know what their number is. If you have more money than them, you can strategize and make sure that they don't have the chance to beat you in the auction. So reading the room, knowing who's there. Obviously, if you're in a home league, you know who's doing what and who likes who and whatever. All of that information is really valuable when you're trying to build the best team and trying to become a league champ, which is ultimately what this is all about. So,
also known as the Price is Right rule. Always have $1 more than the guy that you're titling.
The Price is Right rule. All right. On that, Dan, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. You will be hosting it sometimes during this year.
Yes.
On this channel, on this podcast. We're excited to hear who you bring on, what you're doing here. Until then, follow us, Champions Round, on all social media. Download the app. Remember, you can win that Christian McCaffrey signed jersey, which would be awesome. And go join our paid contest. They're live now in the Champions Round app. We will see you in there, and hopefully we get to battle it out for the first couple of weeks of the season. So until then, have a good one.
Good luck, everyone.